The complicity of silence. What enables this structure is not simply the power of those at the top. It is the silence of the institutions that surround them. Governments issue statements of deep concern. International bodies convene meetings. Leaders call for dialogue and restraint. The language is always careful to avoid naming who is responsible, who is accountable, and what consequence will follow. Deeply concerning is not accountability. Complex situation is not analysis. Both sides is not truth. Institutional silence, the careful, calibrated, lawyer-approved silence of governments and international bodies, is not neutrality. It is a position. It tells the powerful, you are safe. It tells the vulnerable, you are on your own. And the habit of silence, once cultivated, travels. Institutions that learn to stay quiet about one inconvenient truth find it easier to stay quiet about the next. The posture becomes the culture. The culture becomes the norm. The consolidation of the free press. If governments are one pillar of accountability, journalism is the other. A free press is not a luxury. It is the mechanism by which citizens learn what power is doing. Without it, guided drift becomes invisible drift. And in North America, that pillar is cracking, not from censorship, but from consolidation. In Canada, the picture is stark. Bell, Rogers, Postmedia, Corus, and Quebecor control the overwhelming majority of television, radio, and print media in the country. 4 vertically integrated conglomerates, Bell, Rogers, Shaw, now Corus, and Quebecor, account for roughly 55% of the entire Canadian media economy. Postmedia, which controls more than 100 newspapers and news sites, including the National Post and major dailies in every major city, is 66% owned by a U.S. private equity firm. In 2011, every Canadian newspaper except the Toronto Star that editorially endorsed a prime ministerial candidate endorsed Stephen Harper, representing roughly 95% of editorial opinion, despite Harper polling at barely 1/3 of the electorate. In 2015, 17 daily newspapers representing 71% of expressed editorial opinion endorsed the Conservative Party. The owners of the Postmedia Group directed all 16 papers in their national chain to do so. In the United States, the pattern is the same at scale. In 2024, just 10 companies controlled 1/4 of all U.S. newspapers, with 3 of the largest owned by private equity firms whose primary interest is not journalism, but return on investment. 7 corporations, including Fox, Disney, Comcast, and Warner Bros. Discovery, control the majority of what Americans see on broadcast and cable television. As media analyst A.J. Liebling observed decades ago, freedom of the press is guaranteed only to those who own one. The result is not propaganda in the blunt Soviet sense. It is something more subtle and more durable. The narrowing of what questions get asked, which stories get resources, which perspectives get platforms, and which truths get treated as truths. The myth of false balance. Into this narrowed landscape comes one of the most corrosive ideas in modern journalism: the requirement for balance. The premise sounds reasonable. Present both sides. Give equal time. Let the audience decide. It sounds fair. It sounds like journalism. But here is what it actually produces. When a climate scientist explains that the planet is warming due to human activity, a position supported by overwhelming scientific consensus, balance requires finding someone to dispute it. When economists demonstrate that certain tax structures entrench inequality, balance requires a spokesperson to argue the opposite. When historical record shows that a particular policy caused demonstrable harm, Balance requires someone to defend it. This is not fairness. This is the manufacture of false equivalence. It treats established fact as one opinion among many, and in doing so, serves those whose interest lies in confusion rather than clarity. Truth is not a hypothesis. It is not a side. The earth is not flat because some people believe it is. A tax policy does not become equitable because its architects say so. A war crime does not become a matter of perspective because the perpetrator has powerful allies. And the requirement for balance, applied selectively, conveniently, inconsistently, functions as a tool for those who benefit from uncertainty. It is not coincidental that the loudest demands for equal time and hearing both sides tend to appear precisely when the evidence is clearest and the implications most uncomfortable for the powerful. Real journalism does not give equal weight to truth and its denial. It investigates, verifies, and reports. It names things accurately. It distinguishes between what is contested and what is established. And crucially, it does this without asking first whether the answer will upset the people who sign the checks.